The spring sun hung high over Willow Creek Park, casting long shadows across the freshly mown grass. Families had gathered for the annual community fair, a mix of laughter, sizzling barbecue, and the distant whir of carnival rides. Among them was 3-year-old Lily, clutching her mother Jessica's hand as they navigated the crowded space. Lily's tiny sneakers pattered on the pavement, her curious eyes darting from the cotton candy stand to the bright balloons bobbing in the gentle breeze. Jessica had a careful eye on her daughter, but the sheer number of people distracted her for the briefest moment. Lily's attention was caught by a cluster of ducks waddling near the pond. She tugged at her mother's hand and pointed excitedly. "Quack, quack," she squealed, giggling at the waddling birds. Jessica smiled, amused, but just as she reached to steady Lily, a sudden commotion erupted nearby. A man had tripped over a picnic blanket, sending a cooler tumbling across the grass. Parents shouted, children cried, and in the brief distraction, Lily slipped from Jessica's grasp. By the time Jessica realized her daughter was gone, a small crowd had formed, voices blending in panic. "Have you seen a little girl? 3 years old, hair blue dress," Jessica called desperately, scanning the area. Lily, oblivious to the rising chaos, wandered toward the tree line at the edge of the park, drawn by the sound of birds and the sway of the branches. Her tiny figure seemed so fragile against the sprawling landscape, and a cold knot of fear formed in Jessica's stomach. Nearby, Officer Daniel had just finished directing traffic at the park's entrance when a call came over his radio. "Missing child, approximately 3 years old, last seen near the northern playground. K-9 unit requested." Officer's heart raced. He had dealt with lost children before, but the combination of a toddler and open space always triggered his instincts. He nodded at his partner officer, who was handling the K-9, a large German shepherd named Titan. Titan was a veteran dog, trained to respond immediately to threats, strangers, and potential danger. Within minutes, the officers arrived at the scene. The crowd parted, making way for the uniformed figures and the imposing dog. Titan's ears perked up as he sniffed the air, sensing movement. His growl was low but unmistakable, warning bystanders to keep their distance. Jessica's heart dropped. The dog was massive, its eyes trained and sharp, its muscles rippling under the thick fur. She called out Lily's name, voice trembling. "Lily, baby, come back." But her daughter, enthralled by the fluttering leaves, hadn't noticed the looming figure of the police dog yet. As the distance closed between Titan and Lily, the atmosphere thickened. Bystanders froze, some instinctively stepping back. The crowd whispered anxiously, fear creeping into their murmurs. Children clutched parents' hands. For a moment it seemed the entire park held its collective breath. Officers signaled Titan to halt, but the dog was already focused entirely on the small girl. He crouched slightly, tail stiff, growl vibrating through the air, a picture of power and control. And then it happened. Lily, sensing the presence of something large and unfamiliar, tilted her head. Her eyes met Titan's dark, intelligent gaze. Instead of screaming or running, she froze. The silence between child and dog stretched unbearably, every bystander aware that seconds could decide the outcome. Then softly Lily spoke. 2 words. "It's okay." The words floated in the air, delicate yet deliberate. The crowd gasped. Titan paused mid-step, ears twitching. His growl faltered as if trying to comprehend the tiny voice addressing him. Officer tightened his grip on the leash, astonishment etched on his face. He had trained Titan for years, yet nothing in the manuals had prepared him for this. Slowly, the dog's posture softened. Tail dropped slightly, muscles relaxing. He stepped forward tentatively, sniffing the air between himself and the toddler. Jessica's knees buckled slightly. She couldn't believe what she was witnessing. Her daughter, barely able to form full sentences, had done something extraordinary. Friends who had rushed over were whispering in awe. A man filming the scene on his phone whispered, Is this real?" The crowd held its breath, a mix of fear, amazement, and disbelief filling the park. Titan's eyes remained locked on Lily, who now held out her tiny hand. "It's okay," she repeated, a gentle smile spreading across her face. The dog, responding to the innocence and calm authority in her voice, lowered himself to the ground in a sign of submission. A ripple of relief passed through the crowd. Children clapped quietly, mimicking the gestures of their tiny heroine, while adults exchanged stunned glances. Officer finally spoke, his voice calm but shaky. "All right, Titan, let's move back slowly." Titan obediently backed up, his attention still on Lily, who giggled and waved. Jessica ran forward, scooping Lily into her arms, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Oh my God, my baby," she whispered, hugging her tightly. The crowd cheered softly, many wiping away tears. What could have been a tragedy had transformed into a moment of miraculous calm and courage. Even the media caught wind of the event within hours. Bystanders shared videos online, showing the 3-year-old standing fearlessly before a fully trained police dog. Experts later commented that Lily displayed a rare form of emotional intelligence, a calmness that often only appears in much older children or adults trained in crisis response. But for Lily, it was instinctive. Her innocence had bridged the gap between fear and trust, creating a moment of connection few could understand. Jessica held Lily tightly, rocking her gently as officers escorted the dog back to its handler. Questions flooded the air. How had a toddler managed to calm Titan? Could it happen again? What was it about Lily that made such an effect possible? None of the adults could answer, but all agreed on one thing. They had witnessed something extraordinary. That park, filled with laughter just minutes before, had now become the stage for a story that would soon inspire a nation. The story of Lily and Titan didn't end with the park incident. It was only the beginning of a tale that would touch hearts far beyond their small suburban town. That day, amidst fear and uncertainty, a tiny girl had demonstrated courage, empathy, and a unique connection with life itself. And the world was about to take notice. The park remained silent for a few seconds after Lily's small voice cut through the chaos. "It's okay." Those 2 words, soft yet commanding in their simplicity, hung in the air like a fragile promise. Titan, the massive police dog, paused mid-step. His keen, trained senses had detected potential danger everywhere, yet this tiny creature seemed utterly unafraid. Officer tightened his grip on the leash, marveling at the sudden change in Titan's demeanor. The growl that had resonated only moments ago had completely vanished. Neighbors and bystanders stared in stunned silence. Adults instinctively reached for their phones, but even in their awe, no one wanted to move. The dog's tail began to lower slightly, not in fear but in cautious curiosity. The crowd whispered among themselves. Some muttered words like "miracle," while others debated how a toddler could exert such control over a fully trained K9. Even Officer, a veteran with years of experience, could hardly believe his eyes. He had handled children and K9 units for over a decade, yet nothing had prepared him for this. Lily, still standing in the middle of the park, lifted her tiny hand slightly, palm open toward the dog. "It's okay," she repeated, her voice soft but unwavering. Titan, sensing no threat, cautiously approached. The dog sniffed the air between himself and the toddler, each step measured, almost respectful. The tension in the crowd melted slightly. Murmurs of awe spread, parents holding children tightly while marveling at what they were witnessing. Jessica, Lily's mother, ran a few steps forward, but she instinctively froze when she saw Titan lowering his head toward her daughter. Her heart pounded. She whispered Lily's name softly, afraid to disturb the delicate connection forming. Her daughter's wide, calm eyes met hers, and a small smile curved Lily's lips. Jessica could hardly comprehend what was happening. She had spent sleepless nights worrying about keeping her daughter safe. Yet here, in this instant, Lily had displayed a courage she couldn't explain. Nearby, a man recording the scene spoke in hushed amazement, barely audible over the soft whispers of the crowd. "Look at that. She's calming him. She's really calming him." The footage would later go viral, the video capturing the precise moment the dog's instincts shifted from aggression to calmness. Animal behaviorists would analyze it, calling it a rare display of trust and emotional intelligence. But for those present, it felt like magic. Lily was just a toddler, yet she exuded a confidence and empathy that seemed beyond her years. Officer, still holding Titan's leash, finally knelt to the dog's level, his voice gentle. Easy boy, good boy. Titan's gaze never left Lily, but his posture relaxed further. The crowd collectively exhaled. Children watching from nearby swings and picnic blankets giggled softly, some imitating Lily's hand gesture. Parents exchanged looks, some shaking their heads in disbelief. In that brief, unplanned moment, a 3-year-old had bridged the gap between fear and understanding, showing that courage and calmness could exist even in the smallest human heart. Lily giggled, a soft sound that seemed to ripple through the crowd. She didn't fully understand the gravity of the situation. To her, the dog was just another creature, large and curious, and her natural instinct was to reassure him. The connection was simple and pure. No instructions, no training, just a child sensing another being's tension and responding with empathy. Titan, the disciplined K9 trained to detect threats, had responded instinctively, mirroring the calm confidence of this tiny human. Jessica, finally able to move, stepped forward slowly. "Come here, baby," she whispered, arms outstretched. Lily looked back at Titan one last time, still speaking softly. "It's okay." The dog, as if acknowledging her words, stepped back slightly, tail wagging cautiously, and allowed Jessica to scoop her daughter into her arms. The crowd erupted into soft cheers and applause, some laughing through tears, overwhelmed by the improbable scene they had just witnessed. A nearby reporter who had been covering the community fair quickly raised her microphone. "Ma'am, can you tell us what happened?" Jessica, still holding Lily tightly, shook her head in disbelief. I don't know," she said, her voice trembling. She just said it's okay, and then he calmed down. That's all I know. I can't explain it." The reporter nodded, already aware that this footage would be impossible to ignore. Within hours, the video of Lily and Titan would be circulating online, capturing the hearts of thousands, then millions. Experts later weighed in, analyzing the phenomenon. Animal behaviorists described it as a rare moment of instinctive trust. Police trainers marveled at the bond formed between child and K9, explaining that dogs often respond to emotional cues, but rarely with such immediate, profound effect. Psychologists emphasized Lily's emotional intelligence, noting that even at 3 years old, she demonstrated awareness, confidence, and empathy that surpassed expectations. But for the onlookers in the park, labels didn't matter. What mattered was witnessing an extraordinary connection, a reminder of the power of innocence and calm in a chaotic world. Even as the crowd slowly dispersed, whispers of admiration lingered. Parents lifted their children, pointing toward Lily as she waved shyly from her mother's arms. Strangers approached Jessica, some offering hugs, others shaking their heads in wonder. Someone jokingly called her the tiny dog whisperer, and the nickname spread quickly through the onlookers. Local authorities, impressed and moved, noted the unusual behavior in their incident reports, though they admitted no formal training had prepared them for such an occurrence. Titan, meanwhile, returned to his handler, now calm and attentive. Officer knelt and gently patted the dog's head, whispering praise for his obedience. But even the veteran officer admitted to a small sense of awe. "I've handled this dog for years," he later recounted, "but I've never seen him respond like that. That little girl, she's extraordinary." The interaction, brief as it was, left an impression on everyone present, from the officers to the casual park-goers, to the parents holding their own children tightly, reflecting on what they had just witnessed. Jessica held Lily close as the sun began to dip lower in the sky, casting golden hues across the park. The incident had lasted only a few minutes, yet the impact was lasting. Lily's tiny voice, speaking those 2 simple words, had diffused fear, prevented potential panic, and created a moment of connection that would be remembered for years. In the days that followed, neighbors and friends recounted the story over and over, each retelling infused with the same awe and wonder. And somewhere in that moment, amidst fear, disbelief, and amazement, Lily had unknowingly started a story that would travel far beyond Willow Creek Park. From social media posts to news articles, and later to courtrooms and community centers, The tale of a tiny girl calming a police dog with just 2 words would resonate as a powerful reminder. Courage, empathy, and trust are not measured by age or size, but by the heart. Jessica's heart pounded as she clutched Lily close, her small body warm and trembling in her arms. The adrenaline that had propelled her across the park moments ago began to ebb, leaving a heavy wave of relief mixed with lingering fear. Around them, the crowd slowly dispersed, whispers of astonishment and awe lingering in the air. People exchanged glances, some shaking their heads in disbelief, others wiping tears from their eyes. Jessica barely noticed them. All that mattered was that her daughter was safe, unharmed, and astonishingly, had calmed a fully trained police dog with only 2 words. She rocked Lily gently, brushing strands of hair from her face. "Oh my baby, oh my God," she whispered, voice choked with emotion. Lily looked up at her mother, eyes wide and innocent, still smiling faintly as if nothing had happened. Jessica's mind raced, trying to process the scene she had just witnessed. How had her tiny child managed to command the attention of Titan, the massive K9, in a way that no adult could? How had Lily stayed calm, fearless, and empathetic in a moment when grown adults were panicked? Neighbors began to approach, offering quiet congratulations and expressions of wonder. She really calmed the dog," one woman murmured. Another father, holding his own child, whispered, "I've never seen anything like it. That little girl, she's something else." Jessica managed a shaky smile, though inside she felt overwhelmed. This was not just an ordinary day at the park. It had become a story of courage, innocence, and the unexpected power of a child's calm presence. She realized that the moment would not fade quickly. It would linger in the memories of everyone who had witnessed it. Nearby, officer and officer were speaking quietly, recounting the incident to each other. Titan, now calm, stood obediently beside his handler, but the officers remained visibly astonished. "I've handled this dog for years," officer admitted, voice low and incredulous. "He responds to threats, strangers, chaos, but nothing like this. That child, she did something no one could have expected." Jessica overheard and felt a mixture of pride and disbelief. She didn't fully understand it herself, but the acknowledgement from trained professionals reassured her that Lily's actions were extraordinary. As the crowd began to thin, Jessica carried Lily toward a nearby bench, kneeling to keep her daughter safely in her lap. She tried to speak, to calm the emotions swirling inside her, but words failed. All she could do was hold Lily close, whispering reassurances while tears streamed down her cheeks. Around them, parents exchanged stories of their own children, each one marveling at Lily's bravery. Conversations buzzed with incredulity. "Did you see her?" one woman asked. "Just a little girl, and she stood her ground." The incident drew attention almost immediately. Smartphones were everywhere, capturing videos, photos, and snippets of conversation. Jessica watched with quiet apprehension as people shared the footage online. Within hours, the clips began circulating across social media platforms. Friends and family sent frantic messages of admiration, praising Lily's courage. News outlets reached out, asking for interviews, eager to capture the story of a tiny girl who had achieved the impossible. Jessica felt a mixture of pride, protectiveness, and fear. Her daughter was suddenly in the public eye, and while the attention was flattering, it also brought a weight of responsibility. Lily, unaware of the commotion surrounding her, giggled softly and reached for a leaf that had fallen onto her lap. Her innocence remained intact. She didn't yet understand the significance of her actions. To her, the dog had simply been a large creature, and saying "it's okay" had been the natural thing to do. She had not considered fear, fame, or impact, only empathy. Jessica marveled at this purity. In that moment, she realized that her daughter's bravery was not performative. It was instinctive, natural, and completely uncalculated. The officers, seeing the mother-daughter duo safe, took the opportunity to explain what had occurred to Jessica. They described Titan's training, his sensitivity to threats, and how rare it was for the dog to respond to a child with such immediate trust. "He obeyed her, no hesitation," officer said. "That doesn't happen often, not even with older children, not even with adults in calm situations. She's remarkable." Jessica could hardly believe her ears. Her daughter had accomplished something beyond comprehension. She hugged Lily tightly again, her mind flooded with gratitude and awe. As word spread further, the community began discussing ways to honor the event. Local school teachers and administrators wanted to bring Lily in as an example of empathy, courage, and leadership. Friends suggested holding a small ceremony at the park. Even the officers began considering how to incorporate the incident into their training programs, recognizing the lesson in emotional intelligence and human-animal connection. What started as a simple day at a fair had quickly transformed into a community-defining moment, one that highlighted the extraordinary potential in even the youngest members of society. Jessica finally allowed herself to speak to a few neighbors. "I don't know how she did it," she admitted, voice trembling. She just knew what to do. "I'm so proud, but I'm also amazed. I've never seen anything like it." Her words resonated with those around her, many nodding in agreement. Children nearby listened quietly, some mimicking Lily's calm stance with their own toys or pets. A sense of awe and inspiration spread through the crowd like wildfire. Lily, sensing her mother's emotion, reached up and hugged her cheek. "It's okay, Mommy," she whispered, repeating the words she had used with Titan. Jessica couldn't help but laugh through her tears, overwhelmed by the symmetry of it all. Her daughter's innate empathy had calmed a dog trained to detect danger, and now it was comforting her mother in return. It was a profound, poetic moment that reminded everyone that courage and love often go hand in hand. By the time the sun began to dip toward the horizon, casting golden light across the park, the crowd had thinned, but the story lingered in conversations everywhere. People left with a sense of wonder, repeating phrases like, "Did you see the little girl?" "And she calmed the dog." Jessica finally stood, holding Lily's hand tightly, walking toward their car. Though exhausted, her heart felt full. The incident had changed her perspective on her daughter, on parenting, and on the power of empathy. She knew this was only the beginning of a story that would reach far beyond Willow Creek Park. The local news crews arrived shortly after, capturing interviews with Jessica and footage of the park. Parents and neighbors shared their perspectives, all marveling at Lily's fearlessness. Analysts would later discuss the child's emotional intelligence, Titan's trained instincts, and the rare moment where human and animal met in perfect harmony. But in that moment, all Jessica could do was hold Lily close, whisper, "I love you," and silently thank the universe that her child had been safe, unharmed, and remarkable. And as they drove home that evening, Lily nestled against her mother, still softly repeating, "It's okay," in her own little voice. Jessica realized that what they had witnessed was not just a moment of courage. It was the start of a legacy. A tiny girl's simple words had touched the hearts of many, and it was a reminder that sometimes the smallest voices can make the greatest impact. The day after the park incident, Willow Creek woke to a ripple of excitement and awe. News of Lily calming Titan, the fully trained police dog, had spread quickly. Social media platforms were flooded with videos, screenshots, and shared posts. The original footage, captured by a bystander on a smartphone, had gone viral overnight. Comments poured in from across the country, some calling Lily a tiny hero, others marveling at the extraordinary calmness of a 3-year-old in the face of potential danger. Within hours, hashtags like "It's Okay Lily" and "Tiny Hero" were trending nationwide. Locally, the park became a hub of curiosity. People returned to the scene, hopping to catch a glimpse of the little girl who had captured the hearts of so many. Children, holding their parents' hands, tried to imitate Lily's gestures, holding out their tiny hands in front of their pets, whispering softly as if expecting similar results. Adults laughed through tears, astonished at the blend of innocence and courage that had emerged in the park. The story had become a teaching moment, even spontaneously. Parents urged their children to be kind, brave, and compassionate, using Lily as a living example. At Willow Creek Elementary, teachers held impromptu discussions about the incident. Children were fascinated, asking endless questions about how a toddler had calmed a police dog. "She's magical," one student exclaimed, while another added, maybe she's a superhero. Teachers used the event to talk about empathy, fear, and courage, emphasizing that true bravery often involves compassion, not strength or size. Posters and drawings of Lily and Titan began appearing on classroom walls. The story was shaping the community's culture, turning a small park incident into a lesson in kindness and calm presence. Jessica was overwhelmed by the sudden attention. Friends and neighbors congratulated her, hugged her, and expressed disbelief. "I can't believe it," one neighbor whispered. "She's just a little girl and she did that." Jessica smiled weakly, holding Lily's hand tightly. She still didn't fully comprehend how her daughter had managed to calm a dog trained to sense threats instinctively. But she saw the effect on others, and it was undeniable. Lily had inspired adults and children alike, turning fear into wonder and awe. The local news caught wind of the story and arrived at Willow Creek Park for interviews. Reporters spoke to witnesses, capturing the shock and admiration on their faces. Officer recounted the incident, explaining Titan's training and the rarity of his response. "This is highly unusual," officer said. "We've worked with K-9 units for years, and we've never seen one respond so instantly to a child's calmness. Lily's empathy is exceptional." The footage aired on local television and immediately drew attention from neighboring towns. Within hours, national news networks picked up the story. Social media exploded, and Lily became an internet sensation. Videos of the encounter circulated, often paired with captions emphasizing courage, innocence, and the extraordinary bond between humans and animals. Experts in child psychology, animal behavior, and law enforcement weighed in, analyzing the incident. Some described Lily as displaying rare emotional intelligence for her age, while others marveled at Titan's instinctive trust. Journalists wrote pieces highlighting the simplicity yet profound impact of Lily's two words, "It's okay." Community leaders began inviting Jessica and Lily to events, schools, and small ceremonies. The mayor of Willow Creek called the incident a reminder of the power of empathy and courage, regardless of age. Local charities and organizations saw the story as an opportunity to teach kindness and bravery. Some parents even encouraged their children to practice calmness and compassion in challenging situations, inspired by Lily's instinctive response. The tiny girl's impact was growing exponentially, far beyond the boundaries of the park. Meanwhile, social media users debated the nature of Lily's courage. Psychologists described her actions as a rare form of social-emotional intelligence, a child's instinctive ability to sense and respond to the emotions of others. Animal behaviorists discussed the extraordinary reaction of a trained K-9 to a toddler's calm presence, calling it almost miraculous. Parents commented on the videos, reflecting on their own children and wondering if they could teach or inspire such courage. The story had become both inspirational and educational, sparking conversations that went beyond admiration and entered the realm of learning. Back in Willow Creek, Jessica tried to maintain a sense of normalcy for Lily. She encouraged her daughter to continue playing and exploring, gently steering her away from the growing media frenzy. Yet even in quiet moments, the incident remained a topic of discussion. At home, Lily would occasionally repeat the phrase, "It's okay," to her dolls, to her stuffed animals, or even to her small dog at home. Jessica smiled, realizing that the bravery Lily displayed at the park was more than situational. It was a reflection of her innate empathy and instinctive understanding of others. The community organized a small gathering at the park to celebrate Lily's courage. Children came dressed as superheroes, imitating her calm stance, while adults spoke about the lesson they had learned from a 3-year-old. Officers brought Titan along for the ceremony, and though the dog remained disciplined, he seemed relaxed in Lily's presence. When she whispered the familiar words, "It's okay," Titan wagged his tail, eliciting cheers from the crowd. The moment became symbolic, a perfect demonstration of courage, kindness, and the bond between humans and animals. As the week progressed, the story continued to grow. Local businesses displayed posters of Lily and Titan, celebrating the community's tiny hero. Social media accounts dedicated to inspirational stories shared her video repeatedly, often accompanied by messages about empathy, bravery, and the extraordinary capacity of children to inspire adults. Parents and teachers alike discussed the story in online forums, analyzing the qualities that had allowed Lily to remain calm and compassionate. The story became a source of hope, a reminder that even in ordinary places and situations, extraordinary courage could shine through. Jessica, though overwhelmed by attention, focused on nurturing Lily's natural instincts. She allowed interviews selectively, encouraged schools to share lessons on empathy, and privately reflected on the enormity of what had occurred. Each night, as she tucked Lily into bed, she would repeat the words her daughter had spoken to calm a police dog. "It's okay." She realized that those words had become more than a calming phrase. They were a symbol of the child's extraordinary ability to inspire trust, compassion, and courage in everyone around her. By the end of the week, Lily's story had become a nationwide phenomenon. National talk shows invited the family for interviews. Psychologists, law enforcement officers, and educators discussed her bravery in panels and programs. The story was framed as a lesson in leadership, empathy, and the power of calmness. For Willow Creek, it was a moment of pride, a reminder that heroes could come in any size, shape, or age. And at the center of it all was a tiny girl whose instinctive courage had captured the hearts of a nation. Even as the attention grew, the community never lost sight of the core lesson. It wasn't about fame or recognition. It was about empathy, trust, and bravery. Children continued to mimic Lily's gestures in parks, schools held discussions about kindness, and families reflected on the extraordinary power of calm presence. For Willow Creek, the story had become a defining moment, one that would be remembered for generations as a testament to the remarkable potential hidden in the smallest hearts. Weeks after the park incident, the story of Lily and Titan reached a formal setting far removed from the sunny, chaotic fairgrounds, the local courthouse. A case involving the K-9 unit's activities had required review, and the video footage of Lily calming Titan had been submitted as part of the official documentation. Lawyers, judges, and court staff had seen their fair share of unusual incidents, but none had prepared them for a toddler commanding the attention and trust of a fully trained police dog. The courtroom was packed with spectators, reporters, and curious locals. Cameras clicked as journalists tried to capture the atmosphere, though court rules limited recordings. Among the crowd, Jessica held Lily's small hand tightly, keeping her daughter close. Lily, now fully aware that the courtroom was a serious place, remained unusually calm. She shifted occasionally in her mother's lap but kept her wide, blue eyes focused on the proceedings. Despite her age, she seemed to understand that something important was happening, though she had no idea the extent of her impact. When the video footage was played on a large monitor, the room fell silent. The camera captured Lily standing alone in the park, tiny against the towering figure of Titan. Her delicate voice, saying the simple two words "it's okay," resonated through the courtroom speakers. The audience watched as the massive dog's growl faltered, its posture relaxed, and Titan eventually approached the toddler with gentle curiosity. The silent tension that had gripped the park seemed to radiate through the courtroom, leaving every observer holding their breath. The judge, a stern man accustomed to years of courtroom drama, leaned forward, his eyes fixed on the screen. He rarely displayed emotion in public, but even he couldn't hide the astonishment in his gaze. Lawyers paused mid-sentence, witnesses leaned closer, and the gallery collectively exhaled. The power of Lily's small words had transcended the screen and entered the hearts of everyone present. The courtroom, normally a space of rigid procedure, was filled with awe. Jessica's hands trembled as she watched. She couldn't believe that footage of a simple park incident had become such a pivotal moment in a legal proceeding. Lily, sensing her mother's emotions, gently reached up and touched her cheek. "It's okay, Mommy," she whispered, repeating the phrase that had calmed Titan weeks earlier. The courtroom collectively melted into silence again, a poignant reminder that courage and empathy sometimes arrive in the smallest, quietest packages. Officer and officer were called to testify. They described Titan's training, emphasizing that he was conditioned to detect threats, protect strangers, and respond instantly to danger. "This is one of the rarest cases I've ever seen," officer stated, voice measured but incredulous. A 3-year-old child, untrained and unaware of the protocols, calmed a K-9 instantly. "It's unprecedented." Observers nodded, whispering among themselves. The officer's testimony added a layer of validation to the video footage, confirming that Lily's bravery was extraordinary and not merely coincidental. The judge finally spoke, his voice carrying the weight of authority, tempered with quiet awe. "I have seen many cases of bravery," he said, "but this is remarkable. This child's instinctive courage prevented potential danger and inspired those who witnessed it. Her actions reflect not only calmness and intelligence but an extraordinary capacity for empathy." A soft murmur of agreement passed through the courtroom. Tears began to appear on several faces. The legal matter had become secondary. The story of Lily's bravery had taken center stage. Reporters in the courtroom took careful notes, sensing the historical weight of the moment. They whispered about the upcoming headlines, imagining titles that would capture the essence of the story. "Tiny hero calms police dog with 2 words," and 3-year-old's courage stuns community. The footage would go national, they predicted, drawing attention to the power of empathy, courage, and the unexplainable bond between humans and animals. The courtroom had inadvertently become a stage for a story that would touch hearts far beyond the town of Willow Creek. The moment grew even more poignant when the judge allowed Jessica and Lily to speak briefly. Jessica, holding back tears, explained in a quiet voice, "She didn't think about it. She just knew it was okay. She wasn't trying to be brave, she was just being her. And somehow that was enough." Lily, shy but curious, waved to the crowd, repeating softly, "It's okay." The judge and audience alike felt the weight of those words. The phrase had become symbolic, representing the power of calm presence, empathy, and human connection. Even the opposing attorneys were visibly moved. They had come expecting routine testimony and legal arguments, yet they found themselves swept up in the story. One attorney, glancing at his colleagues, whispered, "I can't believe it. A 3-year-old and a police dog, and she just wow." Another nodded, quietly adding, "It's more than bravery, it's pure empathy." The courtroom had transformed from a formal setting into a shared moment of reflection, awe, and emotional resonance. Outside the courthouse, the story spread like wildfire. News vans lined the streets, capturing interviews with witnesses and bystanders who had attended the hearing. National networks picked up the footage from the courtroom, broadcasting it alongside interviews with Jessica, law enforcement, and experts in child psychology and animal behavior. Headlines celebrated the bravery of a tiny girl whose instinctive words had inspired adults, calmed a trained dog, and captured the hearts of an entire nation. For Jessica, the moment was surreal. She held Lily tightly, aware that her daughter had become a symbol of courage, empathy, and emotional intelligence. The attention was overwhelming, yet it reinforced something she had always known. Lily was extraordinary. Her instinctive actions in the park had not been rehearsed, planned, or taught. They were innate. And now the courtroom had validated that instinct as something rare, meaningful, and worthy of recognition. Even the judge, typically reserved and formal, offered a closing remark that would be remembered for years. "This courtroom has seen countless cases of human courage," he said, his voice steady, eyes glistening slightly. "But few moments carry the purity and impact of what this child has demonstrated. Let it be known that courage comes in many forms, and sometimes the smallest among us can teach the greatest lessons." A soft, collective sigh of admiration swept through the courtroom. Many observers dabbed at their eyes, moved by the profound simplicity of the statement. By the end of the day, the footage and courtroom reactions had gone viral. Experts praised Lily's emotional intelligence. Law enforcement highlighted the unusual responsiveness of Titan, and families everywhere discussed the lessons of empathy and courage. Children everywhere were inspired by the story, holding hands, speaking softly, and attempting small acts of bravery in their own lives. The courtroom, intended for legal proceedings, had become the stage for a story that transcended boundaries, ages, and professions. And in the quiet aftermath, as the courtroom emptied and reporters packed their equipment, Jessica looked down at Lily and whispered, "You've done something incredible, my little girl." Lily yawned, oblivious to the fame, rubbing her eyes and murmuring softly, "It's okay." For Jessica, those two words had never carried more weight. They had calmed a dog, touched a courtroom full of adults, and would soon inspire a nation. In that moment, Lily's legacy had quietly begun. After the courtroom spectacle, Officer Daniel found himself back at the K-9 unit headquarters, a quiet contrast to the chaos of Willow Creek Park and the intense courtroom attention. The day's events replayed endlessly in his mind, the video of Lily calming Titan burning vividly behind his eyes. He sat in the lounge, Titan lying peacefully at his feet, and stared at the ceiling, trying to articulate the strange, profound mix of awe and disbelief he felt. He had trained dogs for more than a decade, worked with countless children, and experienced tense situations before, but nothing had prepared him for this. Titan, now calm and alert, occasionally lifted his head to nuzzle Officer who had arrived to debrief. "I still can't get over it," said quietly, crouching beside the dog. "I've seen Titan respond to thousands of situations, threats, intruders, but that little girl, something about her just shifted him instantly." Officer nodded, still lost in thought. "It wasn't just calming him," he said. "It was the confidence she projected, the way she said it's okay, calm, clear, and completely fearless. It commanded respect." The officers discussed the incident in detail, considering the psychology behind Titan's sudden change. Dogs, especially trained K-9s, respond not only to commands but also to emotional cues. Titan's instincts had detected tension, potential danger, and chaos, until Lily's calm presence overrode all of it. Officer realized that Lily had demonstrated a rare ability to influence another being, human or animal, through pure, instinctive empathy. "I've handled children before, but I've never seen anything like this," admitted. "She didn't just calm him, she connected with him." Back in Willow Creek, the media frenzy continued. National news programs broadcast footage of Lily standing in the park, small hand extended, calm voice commanding a massive K-9. Talk shows invited experts to analyze her behavior, discussing the emotional intelligence displayed by a child barely 3 years old. Child psychologists praised her instinctive empathy, explaining that such emotional awareness at that age was exceptional. Animal behaviorists dissected Titan's response, emphasizing how rare it was for a trained K-9 to submit to a toddler's calm presence. The story had captured the collective imagination of a nation. Social media amplified every nuance. Tweets, posts, and videos shared personal reflections. Parents described showing their children the footage to teach courage. Dog trainers marveled at the instinctive trust. Teachers shared the story in classrooms to encourage empathy. Some parents noted that their children had begun practicing calmness with their own pets, whispering softly, hopping to replicate Lily's influence. The tiny girl's story had transcended the local community, becoming a touchstone for education, parenting, and discussions about emotional intelligence. Officer reflected on the broader implications. He had spent years emphasizing obedience, training, and physical commands in his work with K-9 units, but Lily's interaction with Titan had illuminated something deeper, the power of emotional resonance. He began drafting notes for a new training module for K-9 handlers, incorporating lessons from Lily's instinctive behavior. "It's more than just commands," he wrote. "Sometimes the calm, the courage, and the empathy of a human, any human, can change the dynamic entirely. Even with trained animals, emotional connection matters." Meanwhile, Jessica tried to navigate the growing attention while preserving her daughter's innocence. Interviews were selective, framed to focus on the lessons rather than fame. She emphasized that Lily had acted instinctively, without thought for recognition or attention. She didn't try to be heroic, Jessica said in one interview. She just knew what to do in that moment. That's what makes it so remarkable. Psychologists on camera echoed this sentiment, explaining that Lily's empathy and confidence were innate qualities rarely seen at such a young age. Communities across the nation began referencing the story in educational contexts. Schools held lessons about empathy, bravery, and the importance of calmness in tense situations. Children practiced comforting words with classmates and pets, often whispering, "It's okay," mirroring Lily's simple yet powerful words. Parent-teacher organizations emphasized how emotional intelligence could manifest in unexpected ways, sometimes in the youngest members of society. The story had become more than a viral sensation. It was a tool for teaching life lessons. Even law enforcement officers beyond Willow Creek took notice. Emails, calls, and invitations poured in, asking officer and to share the story and the lessons learned. Trainings now included discussion of the incident, highlighting how empathy, calmness, and awareness could influence not just civilians, but the animals they work alongside. Officers marveled that a 3-year-old, untrained and unaware of protocols, had effectively communicated with a fully trained K-9, demonstrating principles they had only taught in theory. Officer sometimes found himself alone with Titan, replaying the park incident in his mind. The dog had been attentive, calm, and unusually responsive. Realized that Lily had demonstrated something the dog instinctively recognized as trustworthiness. She didn't command him with authority, he said to one day. She didn't use fear. She just existed calmly, and that's what made him listen. The insight shifted his perspective on his work and on human-animal interaction. Perhaps the most effective way to teach respect and calm obedience wasn't through fear or force, but through trust, empathy, and presence. Jessica continued to document Lily's growth in subtle ways, aware that the attention could overwhelm her daughter. She observed how Lily naturally interacted with animals, peers, and adults, noting the same calm confidence displayed at the park. Teachers reported similar behavior in classrooms. Lily comforted upset classmates, helped resolve minor disputes, and approached challenges with remarkable composure. Even in ordinary circumstances, the qualities that had calmed Titan were evident. For Jessica, these observations were both reassuring and inspiring. Her daughter's actions were not a one-time miracle, they were a reflection of character. Meanwhile, national media continued to cover Lily's story, often inviting psychologists and child development experts to weigh in. The discussion ranged from emotional intelligence to the science of animal behavior, highlighting the intersection between empathy and instinct. Children across the country were encouraged to practice kindness, mindfulness, and calmness, while adults reflected on the value of pausing and responding with composure. Lily's small act had become a catalyst for a nationwide conversation on courage and empathy, demonstrating the profound impact one individual, no matter how young, could have on society. Officer eventually shared his reflections publicly. In a heartfelt interview, he recounted the incident, emphasizing that the lessons went far beyond K-9 training. "It was a reminder," he said, voice steady, "that courage comes in many forms. Sometimes it's loud and deliberate. Sometimes it's quiet, instinctive, and comes from the smallest among us. Lily reminded me, and all of us, that empathy, calmness, and courage can change outcomes in ways we don't always anticipate." His words resonated widely, adding depth and context to the story that had already captured hearts nationwide. And in the quiet moments at home, Jessica noticed how Lily carried the park incident with her, not as fame or recognition, but as part of her natural demeanor. She comforted siblings, helped friends, and continued to show the same empathy that had calmed Titan. Jessica reflected that this was the true impact of her daughter's actions, not the headlines, the interviews, or the viral videos, but the enduring influence of empathy, courage, and presence in everyday life. The story of Lily and Titan had grown far beyond Willow Creek, but for those closest to it, it remained personal, a testament to the extraordinary potential of a tiny girl who understood instinctively that courage and kindness could coexist. The lessons she taught were now being absorbed by communities, schools, law enforcement, and families across the country, proving that even the smallest among us can spark the largest waves of change. By the time spring fully embraced Willow Creek, Lily's story had transcended local fascination and entered the national consciousness. Television networks, online platforms, and newspapers featured the remarkable footage of a tiny girl calming a fully trained police dog with just 2 words: "It's okay." Across the country, viewers marveled at her calm demeanor, her empathy, and the courage embedded in that simple act. Social media posts tagged Tiny Hero Lily and "It's okay" trended for days, as millions shared the story, analyzed the interaction, and reflected on the profound lesson it imparted. Bravery comes in all sizes. News programs aired slow-motion clips of the incident, emphasizing the contrast between Lily's tiny frame and Titan's muscular form. Psychologists and child development experts were interviewed repeatedly, describing her emotional intelligence as extraordinary. At 3 years old, most children are learning to identify emotions in themselves and others, one expert explained. Lily not only recognized the tension in the dog, but responded with empathy that instantly transformed the situation. It's a rare, innate ability that demonstrates both courage and wisdom far beyond her years. Educational organizations took immediate notice. Schools incorporated Lily's story into lesson plans, encouraging students to practice calmness, empathy, and courage. Children acted out scenarios with dolls, pets, or classmates, whispering softly and offering reassurance. Teachers reported an increase in cooperative play and empathy-driven behavior. "Lily has become a model for our students," one principal said. Her actions remind us that courage isn't always loud or visible. It can be quiet, compassionate, and profoundly impactful. Meanwhile, law enforcement agencies from across the country invited officer to speak at conferences about the incident. They highlighted the importance of emotional cues in K-9 interactions and emphasized the role of empathy in human-animal communication. Officers marveled at Lily's instinctive ability to shift a trained dog's behavior without coercion or command. In training modules, her story became a case study, illustrating how calmness, trust, and emotional presence could alter outcomes in high-stress situations. Jessica, still navigating the whirlwind of media attention, focused on maintaining Lily's innocence and daily routine. Interviews were selective, often emphasizing the lessons rather than fame. She encouraged Lily to continue playing, exploring, and learning, mindful that her daughter's actions had attracted unprecedented attention. "She didn't seek this," Jessica often reminded reporters. "She simply acted with empathy and calm. That's what makes her extraordinary." Lily, for her part, remained blissfully unaware of the national attention, though she occasionally recognized familiar faces in videos and smiled shyly. Public recognition escalated further when community leaders and organizations began honoring Lily. The mayor of Willow Creek organized a small ceremony in the park where the original incident had occurred. Local officials, families, and curious visitors gathered to celebrate her courage. Officer attended with Titan, who remained attentive yet calm in Lily's presence. When Lily repeated her signature words, "It's okay," the crowd erupted into cheers, clapping and laughing through tears. It was a moment of pure joy, a community united by admiration for a child's extraordinary bravery. National organizations also began acknowledging her story. Children's advocacy groups, animal welfare organizations, and civic leaders recognized Lily for demonstrating courage, compassion, and leadership. Awards, certificates, and letters of recognition arrived at Jessica's home, each one acknowledging the profound impact a 3-year-old could have on a community, and eventually, a nation. "She has reminded us all," one letter read, that heroism isn't measured by size, age, or experience, but by the heart and empathy we bring to the world. Social media continued to amplify her story. Millions of shares, likes, and comments celebrated her bravery, with parents, educators, and professionals reflecting on the lessons. Videos were used in training programs, classrooms, and workshops, often emphasizing that Lily's courage wasn't the product of preparation, but of instinctive empathy and calm. Pet owners demonstrated the techniques of gentle reassurance, while parents and teachers emphasized the importance of fostering emotional intelligence in young children. In the midst of the national spotlight, Jessica remained grounded, prioritizing Lily's growth and well-being over accolades. She encouraged Lily to continue exploring the world, helping friends, and interacting with animals naturally. Observing her daughter, Jessica realized that Lily's courage extended beyond a single moment. It was a part of her character, a reflection of innate empathy that manifested not only in extraordinary situations, but also in everyday interactions. Every act of kindness, every comforting gesture, became a continuation of the bravery displayed in the park. Lily's story even inspired literary and artistic projects. Illustrators created picture books depicting her encounter with Titan, emphasizing empathy and courage in a child-friendly narrative. Authors wrote articles and stories highlighting the power of emotional intelligence, using her story as a touchstone. Classrooms read about her bravery, discussed moral lessons, and encouraged children to emulate her calm presence. Through media, education, and storytelling, Lily's influence grew exponentially, touching millions beyond the initial witnesses at Willow Creek Park. Officer, reflecting on the incident in a nationwide interview, emphasized the broader implications. "We often focus on training, rules, and procedures," he said. But Lily reminded us that empathy, calmness, and instinct can achieve what protocol cannot. Her courage is a lesson for all of us, not just officers, but parents, educators, and anyone interacting with children or animals. It's a reminder that understanding, patience, and compassion are powerful tools. As spring turned to summer, Willow Creek became a hub of admiration for Lily. Children visited the park hopping to meet the tiny girl who had calmed Titan. Local schools and community organizations held discussions, art projects, and workshops inspired by her story. Parents encouraged their children to practice small acts of courage, kindness, and empathy, whispering "it's okay" to reassure friends, siblings, or pets. The phrase had become symbolic, representing the transformative power of presence, courage, and compassion. Despite the national attention, Lily remained the same child, curious, playful, and instinctively brave. Jessica marveled at how her daughter's character had touched so many lives, transforming what began as a fleeting moment in a park into a nationwide symbol of empathy. The story of a 3-year-old calming a fully trained police dog had evolved into a movement, one that emphasized kindness, courage, and emotional intelligence as the true hallmarks of heroism. In the quiet moments at home, Jessica often reflected on how a single act of bravery could ripple outward. Lily, unaware of the fame, continued to comfort her pets, help friends, and approach life with a calm confidence. Jessica knew that her daughter's actions were not a product of chance, but of innate character, a tiny girl whose courage had inspired millions, reminding the world that heroism often comes in the quietest, simplest, and most compassionate forms. And so, Lily's story continued to grow, reaching new audiences, inspiring children, and reminding adults of the extraordinary potential in even the smallest hearts. Her 2 words "it's okay" had calmed a dog, touched a courtroom, captivated a community, and now resonated across a nation. The legacy of a 3-year-old's instinctive bravery had begun, and it would leave an enduring imprint on hearts everywhere. The story of Lily and Titan had reached far beyond Willow Creek, evolving into a symbol of courage, empathy, and the extraordinary potential of children. National news outlets, educational programs, and community organizations continued to feature her story, emphasizing the lessons embedded in her simple act. 2 words, "it's okay," had changed a moment of fear into one of trust, calm, and understanding. For Jessica, every headline, every shared video, and every message of admiration carried a mixture of pride, awe, and protective instinct for her daughter. One sunny morning, the family returned to the park where it all began. It had become a sort of pilgrimage site for local families and children inspired by Lily's courage. Officer and Titan were there, along with several other community leaders and reporters documenting the day's events. The park had been decorated modestly with banners celebrating tiny heroes, and children played games nearby, often whispering comforting phrases to stuffed animals in imitation of Lily. Jessica knelt beside Lily, watching her daughter run toward Titan with the same fearless confidence she had shown months before. Lily knelt down and whispered softly, "It's okay," as Titan nuzzled her hand, tail wagging. Cameras captured the moment, but it felt intimate, personal, a reflection of the genuine bond that had sparked nationwide admiration. Jessica smiled through tears. Her tiny daughter had grown, not in age alone, but in the recognition of her own innate power to inspire and calm others. As local and national dignitaries gathered for a small recognition ceremony, the mayor of Willow Creek stepped forward. He addressed the crowd, highlighting the significance of Lily's actions. In a world where heroism is often measured by size, strength, or experience, Lily has reminded us that true courage comes from empathy, kindness, and calm confidence. Today, we celebrate not just her bravery, but the lessons she teaches all of us about the power of compassion. The crowd erupted in applause, many dabbing at tears in the sunlight. Officers spoke next, explaining Titan's training and the rarity of the dog's response. "I've seen K9s respond to countless situations," explained, "but never with such immediate trust and submission to a child's calm presence. Lily's actions have shown us that empathy is a force even more powerful than training. She has inspired our department and our community in ways we never anticipated." Titan, lying quietly by their side, seemed almost aware of the moment's importance, tail thumping gently on the grass. Jessica took a moment to address the gathered crowd and media. Holding Lily close, she spoke softly yet firmly. She didn't plan to be heroic. She didn't think about recognition or attention. She simply acted with empathy and calm, and that has made all the difference. We hope that her actions remind every parent, every child, and every community that courage comes in many forms. Sometimes it's loud and visible. Sometimes it's quiet, instinctive, and entirely compassionate. Lily, unaware of the full weight of her actions, waved shyly at the crowd. Her little voice rang out clearly, repeating her signature phrase, "It's okay." The crowd fell silent for a heartbeat, then erupted in applause. It was a moment of collective understanding, a shared acknowledgement that bravery need not be dramatic or forceful. It could be gentle, empathetic, and simple. For many, those 2 words had come to symbolize hope, courage, and the power of small acts to create ripple effects far beyond what anyone could predict. Over the following weeks, the story of Lily and Titan continued to inspire. Educators incorporated her story into curricula on emotional intelligence, kindness, and conflict resolution. Psychologists highlighted the significance of her calm approach in stressful situations, using the footage to teach children how empathy and composure can influence outcomes positively. Animal trainers and K9 units across the country referenced her actions as a unique case study in the influence of human emotional presence on trained animals. Even families far from Willow Creek began sharing their own stories of inspired courage. Children whispered comforting words to friends and pets, teachers led classroom exercises in empathy, and parents discussed with pride the lesson of how bravery could manifest in unexpected, small, yet meaningful ways. Lily's impact had transcended the park, the courtroom, and local media. It had become a lesson embraced nationally. Jessica reflected privately on the journey. She had witnessed firsthand the extraordinary power of a child's instinctive courage. In ordinary moments, Lily demonstrated kindness, empathy, and bravery. In extraordinary moments, she became a symbol of hope for millions. Jessica realized that the story's power lay not in the spectacle or the attention, but in the enduring reminder that courage and compassion are universal, accessible to all, and often emerge most vividly in the hearts of the youngest among us. Officer in later interviews emphasized that Lily's story had reshaped their understanding of K-9 dynamics. "We trained dogs for obedience, protection, and threat detection," he explained. "But Lily's actions demonstrated a level of emotional intelligence we hadn't fully considered. Calm, empathy, and trust are as powerful as any command. Lily's courage has taught us lessons we'll carry into every interaction with children, animals, and the community for years to come." For Lily, the attention was both thrilling and ordinary. She continued to play, explore, and express her innate empathy through small gestures that often went unnoticed by the public. Every comforting hug, every whisper to a pet or friend, was a continuation of her defining moment in the park. Jessica watched in awe, realizing that the true legacy of Lily's courage was not the viral videos or awards, but the enduring pattern of empathy, composure, and bravery she carried into everyday life. Months later, a national ceremony recognized Lily formally as a young ambassador for courage and empathy. Children, parents, educators, and civic leaders attended, all eager to witness the tiny girl whose simple words had sparked an extraordinary wave of inspiration. Lily, holding Titan's leash gently, repeated her signature phrase to the assembled audience, earning a standing ovation. Cameras flashed, journalists took notes, and psychologists nodded in appreciation, acknowledging that this moment represented far more than media spectacle. It represented the profound impact of kindness, courage, and the quiet power of empathy. In her acceptance speech, carefully guided by Jessica, Lily's message was simple: "It's okay." The words, repeated with innocence and authority, resonated through the hall, touching hearts and inspiring a collective understanding that courage need not roar. It could be gentle, it could be quiet, and it could come from the smallest among us, reminding the world of what is possible when empathy leads the way. As the crowd slowly dispersed, Jessica knelt beside Lily, brushing her hair gently from her face. "You've done something incredible, my little girl," she whispered. Lily smiled faintly, patting Titan's head. "It's okay, Mommy," she replied, as if reminding her mother that the world was right in that moment. And in that quiet exchange, Jessica realized the ultimate lesson of Lily's journey. Bravery and compassion were inseparable, timeless, and capable of touching every life they encountered. The story of Lily and Titan became more than a viral sensation or a courtroom highlight. It became a lesson for a generation. Children learned that courage was not measured by size or strength. Adults remembered the power of calm empathy, and communities embraced the possibility that even the smallest act of kindness could create a ripple effect, inspiring millions. The tiny girl who had whispered 2 words to calm a massive K-9 had, in turn, calmed and inspired the hearts of an entire nation. And as the sun set over Willow Creek Park, the place where it all began, Jessica held Lily's hand tightly, watching her daughter skip ahead to Titan. "It's okay," Lily murmured to the dog, then to herself, a simple mantra that had grown into a legacy. In that moment, the community, the nation, and perhaps the world understood that true courage and lasting impact could indeed come from the tiniest hearts, whispered in the softest words, yet heard far and wide.